Welcome to the 5th tutorial for Sound Sorcerer. In this tutorial we're going to talk about MIDI nodes and how to use them to make a really simple synth. Before you start up Sound Sorcerer, you want to make sure and have your MIDI device already plugged in. If it's not, you can just close Sound Sorcerer, plug it in, and then launch it again. Okay, so first thing, let's go under the Live Play menu and grab a MIDI node. Let's check out those parameters. On the MIDI node, you have the number of channels. What that means is how many notes it can play at one time. We're going to leave it at 1 for now. This is just going to be a really simple synthesizer. This checkbox for new notes, stop old notes when full. What that means is if your MIDI node can play 3 notes at once, what happens when you play the 4th note? If this box is checked, the 4th note will start to get played, and the oldest of the 3 older notes will stop playing. If this box is not checked, it'll just keep playing the 3 notes and not bring in the 4th. And this checkbox, cue notes when full, what that does is controls whether or not the MIDI node remembers notes that aren't being played anymore or not. So in our case of if your MIDI node only plays 3 notes, but you play a 4th, when you let go of that 4th key, will the MIDI node remember what it was playing before that you still have held down or not? You might have to play with it to figure out what I'm talking about. It's kind of complicated. Well, it sounds complicated anyways. Okay, and then here's the mode. We're going to leave it at just play, but the other options are record new track, if you wanted to record, playback recording to play back a recording that you've previously made, or just play, which is what we're doing, and it doesn't record, it just lets you play. Current track, if you had tracks, you'd be able to select it here. And then here's one, ignore key velocity. If this is checked, all notes come in at full volume. Otherwise, they are louder the harder you press on the keys. And then down here are some buttons: delete current track, rename current track, export current track, and import a track. We'll get to those in a future tutorial. Okay, so that's the MIDI node. Let's go ahead and... you might notice that the MIDI node gives out a blue output, because MIDI is just volume and frequency, but not actual sound waves. And so let's do a saw wave to give our MIDI a voice. Okay, so check this out. Let's play it. So right now we have a working synthesizer. So all we need to do is press play and we can start playing. So let's do that. And there we go. There was our synthesizer in action. Really simple. Doesn't sound that great, but it's working. One thing you might have noticed is that the notes popped when they started and stopped because we have no envelope. So let's go ahead and add an envelope under note processing. And we're going to make a really simple one with a 10 millisecond attack time and 10 millisecond release time. And turn that off. Turn that off. That should be good. Let's see, make sure everything's cool on the MIDI node. Okay, so let's play that again. Yeah, so really simple envelope on it now, and yeah, it's a working synthesizer, but you're not able to tell this, unfortunately. If you played with it, you would notice, is that the sound lags quite a bit. What I mean by that is when you press the key, there's a really noticeable amount of time before you hear the sound out the speakers. And the reason for that is because of how we're doing the sound output. Different ways of doing sound output have more or less latency, and just the default one that the output node uses is fairly high latency. Yeah, let's check out the output devices. So on the output node, when you select it, you can choose an output device. Your list will be different than mine, but if you notice, this guy is the default, and for me, it says speakers and dual headphones, 200 milliseconds, that's the latency. So that means when I press a key, it takes 1/5 of a second before you hear anything, which is huge. You totally notice it. Has 44.1 kilohertz default sample rate, stereo, and here it says the API is MME, which is a pretty slow one. We also have lower down, we have API direct sound. Direct sound is better. It's not really 0 milliseconds like it says, but it is faster. And then lastly, you'll see down here at the bottom, ASIO is the API, and I'm using ASIO for all, version 2. It has 11 milliseconds latency. That's actually not lying, and that's what you have to use to get real-time latency. ASIO, that is. So there's different ways to get to ASIO, different drivers and devices. Your best bet is to go grab ASIO for all, just like I did, and install it. It works great and gives you low latency sound. I'll put up the website underneath this tutorial on the website. But one thing is, once I got ASIO for all, I had to kind of set it up a little bit, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. So I have my output set to ASIO for all. Let's start playing. So I press spacebar to start playing. It's the same as pressing the arrow, the play arrow. But anyhow, once you have your thing running and it's ASIO for all output, you'll notice this guy appeared in your tray. Go ahead and click him. So when you see it, it'll probably look like this. Click the wrench, and this expands it. So in mine, it looked like this originally, where all those were lit up. What I had to do to get ASIO working was I had to unselect all of them except for my speaker. I don't know why. You probably have to do something different. Play around with it, you'll get it. And if not, ask on the forums and someone can help you out. So yeah, let's see. Let me check out my notes real quick. Okay, so nice. So we have a poor sounding synth right now. Let's set this back to the default. We can spruce it up just a little bit. Let's add a flange, and let's add a delay. And we'll just use the default parameters for the flange and delay. That should be fine. Hook them up, and then here, unfortunately I can't play ASIO while I'm recording a video. It's just, there's a conflict somewhere. So I'm going to fake it a little bit. I'm going to import a track. We'll go over this in another tutorial about what exactly I'm doing. Tutorial, and then we'll play it back. So check this out. Here's our synthesizer that we just made. There you go, get a kind of an idea for it. So yeah, not too bad sounding for just something that we threw together. You can play with parameters, maybe change out software, square wave, try other things. But yeah, just it's pretty simple to make a synthesizer. And in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about how to make one that has that's polyphonic and that you can actually play multiple notes at once. Thanks.